I know. Sunday school flashbacks, right? The felt board figures, the slightly off flannel graph. But before you scroll past thinking you've heard it all, ask yourself this. What would you do if your dream job came straight from the heavens, came with absolutely zero pay, and the destination's crime stats made Gotham look like Disneyland? Exactly. Jonah sprinted the other way, and honestly, who could blame him? Stick around. His panic attack vlog inside a fish gut is way, way wilder than your worst travel story, I promise. This isn't your grandma's Bible story. It's a raw, lighthearted, and surprisingly relatable tale of divine detours and fishy accommodations. Here's a fun fact. Scientists recently confirmed the biggest sperm whale ever accurately recorded was a colossal 79-foot, 330,000-pound leviathan seen in the southern Pacific in 1933. Big? Oh, absolutely. That's 25 bull elephants big. Terrifying. See Moby Dick. A nice Airbnb for a long weekend? Nope. Not even if you throw in a functioning digestive system and a nice view of some giant incisors. Too wet, 0 stars. Would not recommend. So, just how did he get here? Let's rewind and watch Jonah clock in for the weirdest 3-day bender in maritime history, a journey that redefines all-inclusive. Chapter 1, The Gig No One Wants. Picture Jonah. He's probably got his hoodie half-zipped, a lukewarm coffee in hand, scrolling through what can only be described as divine notifications. Ping. A message flashes across his spiritual inbox. Go to Nineveh. Big sermon. No excuses. Tell them they're messing up big time. He probably sighs, runs a hand through his hair, and then, out of morbid curiosity or perhaps a flicker of duty, he considers going. Nineveh in his mind was less a city and more a cosmic headache. Think Vegas meets ancient Baghdad, but every single Yelp review ends with, and then they set something on fire. Their reputation for violence, cruelty, and general mayhem preceded them by 1,000 miles. They were the undisputed bad guys of the ancient world, a place where travelers went and were often never heard from again. Jonah, being a perfectly rational human being, closes the app. He doesn't just ignore it, he actively plots a counter-move. He books the farthest boat he can find, heading in the exact opposite direction, Tarshish. Now, Tarshish wasn't just another city. It was the biblical equivalent of saying, I'll hide in Antarctica, maybe on the dark side of the moon, anywhere but there. It was the absolute edge of the known world, a place so remote he figured even God's cosmic GPS wouldn't reach. He was convinced that if he could just get far enough away, out of sight, out of mind, this whole Nineveh unpleasantness would simply evaporate. Spoiler alert, cosmic GPS still works offshore, and divine assignments aren't easily shaken off. Running from God, it turns out, is a lot like trying to outrun your own shadow. Futile, exhausting, and ultimately a little ridiculous. Chapter 2. The Storm That Canceled the Cruise. So, Jonah hops on a boat bound for Tarshish and is already lining up excuses should God ask what he's up to. He's keeping a low profile, ready for a nice, uneventful cruise to the literal ends of the earth. But then, smack dab in the middle of the Mediterranean, the sky snaps black. Not just cloudy, but an ominous ink-black darkness that swallows the sun whole. The sea, once calm and inviting, starts to churn and roil, throwing the ship around like a toddler with a bath toy. Waves taller than houses crash over the deck, threatening to splinter the vessel into kindling. The seasoned mariners, tough but superstitious, are absolutely terrified. They're chucking everything overboard, every suitcase, every souvenir, every inflatable flamingo, anything to lighten the load, to appease whatever angry deity they believe they've offended. Nothing works. The storm just gets worse, a furious targeted assault. Finally, in desperation, they corner Jonah. And where is Jonah during all this chaos? Down below deck, snoring away, napping like a guy ignoring turbulence on a Spirit Airlines flight. He's so deep in denial, or perhaps just utterly exhausted from his spiritual rebellion, that he's practically oblivious. When they shake him awake, his confession is a masterpiece of understatement. Yup, my bad. This is all for me. Toss me in, and the chaos boss lets go. The sailors hesitate, understandably. Nobody wants that kind of HR complaint on their celestial record. Nobody wants to be responsible for throwing a man to his death, even if he is responsible for a hurricane. They try to row, they try to pray, but the storm rages on, a relentless force demanding its due. Eventually, with a heavy heart and a desperate plea to Jonah's God, they fling him over the side. The moment he hits the water, something uncanny happens. The sea flatlines instantly. The wind dies down to a whisper. Even the very air seems to need a second to process what just occurred. It's a silence so profound it's almost louder than the storm itself. Chapter 3. Swallowed, not stirred. Enter the megafish stage right. Not just any fish, mind you, but a behemoth, custom ordered for this very occasion. Down Jonah goes, tumbling into the cavernous maw, barely missing those teeth like Indiana Jones avoiding traps in a cave. Inside, it's not just dark, it's an oppressive, absolute darkness, thick and suffocating. The air, if you can call it that, smells like low-tide dumpster, an unholy blend of decaying seafood and digestive enzymes. And the thermostat? Oh, it's stuck on lobster boil, a humid, stomach acid-infused warmth that promises a slow, uncomfortable end. His first hour is pure, unadulterated panic. Full-blown, clawing at the walls, screaming into the void panic attack. He's probably convinced this is it, the ultimate consequence for his disobedience. He doesn't get a lot of wiggle room. The second hour, as the initial terror subsides into a cold dread, brings bargaining. He promises everything. To recycle, to call his mom more often, to finally organize his sock drawer, fast, pray, anything God wants. Just get me out of this aquatic prison of goo. He makes vows, he repents, he probably even offers to evangelize to the fish if it'll help. The third hour, however, brings a dawning, chilling realization. He's not just in a fish, he's in a wet timeout designed by the same being who invented quarks and platypuses, the same mind that orchestrates galaxies. And in that moment, perhaps, just perhaps, he admits to himself and God, running was a tactical error of cosmic proportions. This wasn't punishment for punishment's sake. This was an enforced, utterly inescapable moment of correction. It was a spiritual reset button, pressed with a very large, very wet thumb. Chapter 4. The World's Oddest Prayer Room. Cue 3 days of forced stillness, 3 days inside the belly of that beast. No Wi-Fi, obviously, no windows to gaze out at the vast ocean, definitely no room service, just the rhythmic sloshing of stomach acid, the pungent, inescapable smell, and an overwhelming soul-cracking crashing out. This was a place where distractions simply ceased to exist. There was nothing to do but think, to feel, to pray. In that unique biological prayer closet, Jonah composes a poem prayer, a desperate cry from the depths that basically says, I thought I hit rock bottom, but rock bottom apparently had a basement, and I'm in it. For the first time in his stubborn life, he admits he's small, that he's utterly powerless, that he's been incredibly stubborn, and yes, that he's in over his head, quite literally. He acknowledges God's sovereignty, his own folly, and the incredible, undeserved mercy that even in this dire situation still offered a glimmer of hope. He finally surrenders, letting go of his self-righteous anger and his fear of Nineveh, replacing it with a raw, desperate plea for salvation. The moment he finishes, the fish, perhaps feeling a sudden, inexplicable stomach rumble, feels a burp coming on, and with a mighty belch they probably heard in Sandusky, Jonah flops onto a beach like a salt-crusted lawn dart, utterly bewildered, utterly alive, and probably smelling like a very strong fish market. He's been spat out, quite unceremoniously, onto dry land. He gives 1 star to his Uber/Airbnb accommodations, orients his ways, and sets off on his mission from God. Chapter 5. Nineveh, finally. Exhausted, smelling like a sushi trash can that's been left in the sun for a week, Jonah shuffles the estimated 500 miles to Nineveh. He probably looks like he's just survived the apocalypse, which, in a way, he has. He arrives a walking, fish-scented testament. He doesn't bother with an elaborate sermon, no fancy graphics, no altar call, no stirring rhetoric. He just utters 5 Hebrew words that roughly translate to, 40 days you're toast, or more accurately, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. That's it. That's the entire earth-shattering, empire-saving message. And what happens? The city, the notoriously wicked, violent city, goes into a full-blown repentance montage. The king, a ruler of immense power, trades his royal robes for sackcloth and ashes, a public display of humility. He issues a decree for everyone, from the highest noble to the lowest peasant, to fast and pray, to turn from their evil ways. Even the pigeons look repentant, cooing mournfully. God, seeing their genuine change of heart, spares the city. Jonah's minimalist sermon goes viral in a sense without him posting a single selfie or even having a social media account. Even the cows go vegan, covered in sackcloth, as if the very animals are joining in the citywide lament. Hashtags trend like "turn down sin for what?" It's a testament to the power of a simple, direct message, especially when delivered by a man who looks like he's been to hell and back. Chapter 6. The Sulk Heard Round the World. Now you'd think Jonah would be popping champagne, celebrating the biggest, most successful revival in history. He just saved an entire city, fulfilled his divine assignment, and survived a whale. But instead, he does what only Jonah would do. He camps outside town, builds a little lean-to, and waits. He's hoping, truly hoping, for some firework destruction footage, a cosmic light show of divine wrath. He's still angry that God showed mercy to these people he despised. He wanted justice, not grace. God, ever patient, ever teaching, grows a shade tree, a fast-growing plant that provides Jonah some much-needed relief from the scorching sun. Jonah basks in its shade, momentarily content, but then God removes the tree, letting it wither and die, leaving Jonah once again exposed and furious. And here's the lesson drop, delivered with the gentle sting of the desert sun. Mercy isn't a reward for the perfect, it's oxygen for the desperate, including Jonah himself. He needed mercy to be saved from the storm and the fish. God's mercy extended to Nineveh, just as it had extended to him. The prophet ends the book still pouty, still learning, still employed, but perhaps, just perhaps, a tiny bit more open to the incomprehensible vastness of God's compassion. It's a beautifully human ending, showing that even prophets are works in progress. If you're enjoying this rather unconventional retelling, do me a solid. Punch that like button so hard your phone thinks it's Judgment Day. And if you want more underdog Bible stories, retold with a dash of wit and minus the flannel graph, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't regret it. Chapter 7. Why Adults Still Care. So, why does this ancient fish story still resonate with us today, thousands of years later? Because we all have our Ninevehs. We all have those uncomfortable emails we dodge, those relationships we ghost because they're too hard, those responsibilities that smell vaguely like fish guts and we'd rather pretend they don't exist. Jonah reminds us that avoidance rarely shrinks the assignment, it just upgrades the storm. Running away doesn't make the problem disappear, it simply delays the inevitable, often making the journey back far more arduous. The whale, then, isn't just punishment. It's a mobile classroom, a personalized, highly effective spiritual retreat where stubbornness graduates into surrender. It's a place where the universe forces you to sit with your choices and confront your deepest fears. It's where Jonah, kicking and screaming, finally learned to yield. And that mercy Jonah resents so much, the mercy that spared Nineveh, turns out it's the exact same mercy that lets us wake up on Tuesday morning, despite all our Monday mistakes, without being devoured by the consequences of our own flawed decisions. It's the grace that allows us to try again, to choose differently, to turn around. It's the ultimate second chance, offered freely, even when we don't deserve it. Chapter 8. Science Says Maybe. Now, let's talk about the science, or the lack thereof. Can a person really survive inside a whale? Marine biologists have logged modern accounts of sperm whales accidentally gulping divers. There's a documented incident where a diver named Michael Packard was swallowed by a humpback whale in 2021 and survived for about 30 seconds before the whale spat him out, apparently unharmed. Historical records, often debated, mention a 19th century sailor named James Bartley, who allegedly lived for 36 hours in a whale's belly before being rescued, though many scholars dispute the veracity of that particular account. But here's the point. The Bible doesn't actually say whale. It says large fish. And while a literal human survival inside a sperm whale for 3 days is highly improbable, given oxygen deprivation, crushing pressure, and digestive acids, the term large fish doesn't necessarily have to break biology as we know it. It just might stretch it a little. Perhaps it was a creature unknown to modern science or an unprecedented act of divine preservation. The miracle in this context isn't just the lodging, it's the checkout after 3 prepaid nights, the safe return to dry land, ready to fulfill a destiny he tried so hard to escape. It's the divine intervention that transcends the ordinary, reminding us that some stories operate on a different scale of possibility. Chapter 9, The Moral minus the flannel. So, if we strip away the Sunday school sweetness and get down to the brass tacks, what's the real takeaway from Jonah's wild ride? Running lengthens the route, never cancels it. You might think you're escaping, but all you're really doing is adding miles to your journey and increasing the difficulty setting. The universe, or God, has a funny way of making sure you eventually end up where you're meant to be, no matter how many detours you try to take. Grace is less about fairness, more about second chances you can't buy. Jonah didn't deserve to be saved from the storm, nor did Nineveh deserve mercy. But grace isn't about what's deserved, it's about what's freely given. It's the unmerited favor that opens doors we thought were permanently shut for ourselves and for others. Sometimes your biggest mess becomes your microphone. Just ask the guy who turned fish breath into a sermon that flipped an entire empire. Your struggles, your failures, even your most embarrassing moments can become the most powerful platforms for your message precisely because they demonstrate vulnerability and transformation. So, next time you're tempted to ghost your responsibilities, to hit the spiritual eject button and head for Tarshish, remember Jonah. Remember that detours through whale stomachs rarely show up on the map, but they often get you exactly where you needed to be all along, humbled, grateful, and weirdly moisturized. Drop your takeaway below. What's your personal Nineveh right now? What responsibility are you trying to outrun? Comments are open. No fish required for entry. And hey, if you learned something, if this story stirred something in you, share this video like it's manna, good and fresh daily, meant to be shared. See you on the next upload, and until then, maybe answer the call before the storm does it for you.